Hello and welcome to the Madecast, the official podcast of the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment, a series of lectures on video game history as part of the Made's ongoing effort to preserve history through teaching and displaying playable exhibits of rare games and consoles.
While life in the time of COVID has forced us to close our doors, the support of people like you has allowed us to continue to bring history to you through lectures and interviews like the one you'll hear in a few minutes. I'm Chun.
I'm Anthony.
I'm Miles.
And I'm Red. Today, Alex talks with David Perry, developer of Earthworm Jim and Aladdin for the Sega Genesis and many other games. He's here to talk about the ZX Spectrum, his first computer, the evolution of games, and some of his favorite titles. This is a very interesting conversation. He's a joy to hear talking everything about his bringing up in games and how he still is inspired about working on them to date. So I think that's really great. But before we get into this interview with Mr. David Perry, we have a short list of news items for you today. The Matrix 4. The trailer has been released. It looks like it's pretty great. Definitely going to be more Matrixy, you know. I think they took some good notes of which the original three were the popular ones and went with that for the fourth one. But wanted to bring that up because David also has worked on Enter the Matrix and The Path of Neo, both those console games when they came out. So maybe, fingers crossed, we'll get another Matrix game with David at the helm. We will see. We will see. In other news, we have a couple milestones. So, I'm not super familiar with it. So, tell me about Gary's Mod. Gary's Mod has just passed 20 million copies sold.
So Gary's Mod is built on a slightly modified version of Valve's Source Engine, which is what they use for all of their games. Portal, Half-Life, Team Fortress 2.
That's it. No,
that's it. Those are their games. And so I can't remember when Gary's Mod originally launched, but it was like 2008, 2009, I think. And it was built originally just by Gary Newman of Gary. This is his mod.
Of Gary fame.
Yeah, Gary fame. All Garys know Gary Newman.
Yeah.
And it is essentially just a physics sandbox game. It's not Minecraft. There's no actual game there. It's just you load it up and put ragdolls in and play with all the props from all from all Valve titles. You know, you can put zombies in. You can do whatever you want. You can play with physics. You can throw things, and it's extremely open-ended. So a lot of people have taken that original concept and made really remarkable game modes out of it. So this is where you get games like Trouble in Terrorist Town, or Prop Hunt, or Melon Bomber, or any of the like dozens and dozens of different kinds of RP servers. So it's grown into this very complex and beloved thing out of just something that you were supposed to just goof around in and you know, smash things together with.
It's almost like it's just become another engine of itself. Mm-hmm. Like another place for people to create games and then put them out.
Like how DayZ kind of started, or was it?
Yeah.
This kind of game can always survive long. I still remember it's not Gary's Mod, but it's Left 4 Dead. But you know they're all doing the same kind of stuff, which having a bunch of mods, which actually just make another game of it. I remember I was playing on a server called the Left 4 Dead RPG, and in the game there's a lot of jobs and skills you can use, and it's technically just cheating, but it's very fun to just play on. Imagine there's a few rocket launcher just floating behind you, and they just shoot the enemies for yourself, and there are tanks in different colors who have different abilities like poison and something other things else like that, and it's really fun playing that. So
poison tanks.
Yeah, poison tanks. Yeah, if you got hit, you'll be poisoned to death. I remember there's a blue tank which can summon thunder too, but yeah,
geez.
That's pretty fun. But I think that's why the games like Garry's Mod can survive such a long time and still be popular. They just keep refreshing itself, and it's never ending.
Yeah, that's going to be. I mean, 20 million copies is a very large landmark, and I think that's really cool to see that many people using a mod made by Garry. I think it's really interesting. I'm gonna have to give that a check out later today, just see what we can do with it. Our last little bit of news that we have is that Stardew Valley official esport has passed 15 million copies sold. So I think that esports push for Stardew Valley has increased people's desire to play it and get really good at it now. So we will be seeing that very soon. But I think it's about time we threw it over to Alex and David Perry today. This is a great interview. I think everyone will enjoy this. It's a lot of great insight into the game making itself and what is and how to be inspired almost. So here it is, Alex and David Perry.
And we're back with David Perry. David, thank you for being here.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me.
David, you're as absolutely legendary. We could go through all the things from top to bottom, from Earthworm Jim to people still love the Aladdin game for Genesis and so forth. But I'm wondering, which system do you have the most fond memories of that you developed for back in the day?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say probably I would have to go right back to the first computer I was allowed to touch. So in school, we had this computer lab, and they wouldn't let me in, so they thought I was too young. And I was kind of interested in what's in this secret room, and I finally got in there, and it turns out the people were really nice. So they were like, hey, let me show you what this is. This is a Sinclair ZX81. This thing is 1K of memory, and it's got this thing called BASIC, and let me just show you how that works. And they sort of they showed me like 2 or 3 instructions and then just left me. So I was like, okay, input, what is your name, print hello, and then I'm like, well, I can do things with that. And I started trying to make it ask all these questions. And so it's just it was just the first thing I touched or was allowed to touch, and that's what made it special. On the other hand, I didn't realize that this was really a thing, and so I ended up, those simple little games that I wrote in BASIC ended up getting published in magazines, and so it became by far the most interesting thing in my life. I've got school, there's no internet, there's no YouTube, nothing like that. I'm living in the countryside in Northern Ireland, and it's freezing cold outside, and so video games suddenly became fascinating, and that was the device that did it.
Now, the Spectrum was an extremely limited device, so, I mean, that's like, you had to learn from the ground up every little bit of the thing, didn't you?
Yeah, I still chuckle when I hire engineers today, and I explain to them that everything I did in the old days, once we actually started making real games, was all, it's called machine code or assembly language. But basically, you're actually in complete control of the hardware, and you're responsible for everything. And even though it seemed quite complicated, as kids, you just adapt. Whatever the problems are, you find out solutions. And then you can start making the device do anything you want. And I think there's a key moment. I try to explain to people what programming is. It's like puzzle solving. It's endless puzzle solving. And that moment when you you complete a Rubik's Cube or something like that, there's that you've beaten the puzzle. Imagine you just getting those aha moments, those little that feeling over and over and over and over as you're developing software. And so I just had a lot of fun in those days, sort of learning to get to. Well, I guess the moment was when you suddenly realize you could make anything. There's this key moment where you're like, I could make a soccer game, I could make a Tetris, I could make a. You sort of have worked out enough of the machine and enough of the language to be able to pretty much craft anything. And I think that's an amazing moment that it's very hard to go back from once you get there.
I think one of the other things that you've seen the evolution of over the years is the genres. You sort of hit on it there. I could make a Tetris, I could make a this, I could make a that. And the genres in video games are such a different entity than in movies, say. What do you think of the way that games have evolved in terms of blending genres and the resurgence of, say, the old 2D scrollers and so forth and Metroidvanias?
One of the things that I always... it was funny because I was just explaining this to my daughter yesterday, is the idea of always having a hook. So we used to really believe strongly in that. Whatever game we made, it would do something you hadn't seen before. And it was inspired by the arcade machines because that's what they did. Every time you played a new arcade machine, you're like, how do I even control it, right? Like, I put my face in here, right? What am I going to do with this thing? There's a ball. What does that ball do? And that was really fun. And what happened over time is the arcade machines sort of standardized, and then it was just, a joystick with some buttons, and it started to become actually quite boring at that point. But that's the point, right? We're always looking for new experiences. It is stunning to me how we locked into this sort of set of games. It's a platformer, it's a simulator, whatever. There's these very clear defined things, and I'm always yearning for more and more, where someone comes up with something we just haven't seen before. There's a game, Factorio, I think is a good example, where you're laying out, you're basically sort of working out how to solve really complex problems. Minecraft, there's another one. What the heck? It's because that actually goes the opposite direction we thought the industry was going, which is, I want sweat simulation and cloth simulation, and suddenly you've got these big pixely swords and things like that. It's like, wait. That's not the way this is supposed to go. And so it sort of shows that there's such a wide space, and ultimately people just want to be entertained. But I'm always fascinated by those people who can just come up with that thing that you just haven't seen before. They're going to make a new genre. They're going to make a new experience. And that's what I love when you get bedroom coders, or you get, when a new device comes out, like the iPhone, suddenly a whole ton of new sort of talent came in and started dreaming up ideas. And so, are we done yet? Like, you sort of say, well, we must have done everything by now. Like, what else is there left? I think there's loads left. I think we're only just getting started. And I still am holding out that someday VR and things like that will open it up even more. So, just a funny story. I was doing a presentation, and I had this slide in my deck which showed the chainsaw industry, all the different chainsaws everyone makes, and they all look exactly the same, and they're just different colors. And I kind of laughed and went, I hope that never happens to games. And then it was like, well, hold on a minute. I took a bunch of screenshots from games, and I showed them to the press, and I said, can you tell me which games these are from? And they couldn't tell us, because it's you're in this refinery or this warehouse, and there's boxes, and there's a certain gun which we've seen in 50 different games. And so it was kind of fun because and I did the same with soccer games. So I had all these different soccer games, and the same thing as guys on the field, and they were finding it really hard to identify which was which. And so the question is where does that go? And my sort of hope is at some point we get back into making worlds. And when you make entirely new worlds, then that's going to open up some new spaces and new ideas that people haven't experienced yet. And a good example in Hollywood would be someone like James Cameron. He's not just knocking out a story; he's building a universe around it, as we're about to find out with Avatar in his next 4 movies, right? But that's the video game equivalent is whenever you're able to go into a space that's never existed, and you can create anything you want. I can't wait to see what developers come up with for that.
Yeah, and I asked that question because Shiny really exemplifies that pushing at the boundaries and trying to innovate. And for better or worse, in a lot of games, like Sacrifice, I thought was a very high note, but sort of a cult classic now, where it's blending genres or taking trying to do lots of new things, in addition to building this completely new world with these really vibrant characters and the gods, right? Like, you can see what you just said throughout your career, I guess I'm saying. Yeah,
we had so much fun because that's usually what would start an idea, and then you go off. But I used to love playing Sacrifice with the gamers who played it because I knew the game inside out because we built it. but gamers would kick my butt, and they would be playing, like, they'd play backwards, like running backwards and stuff, and it's like they've learned the map without seeing it and things like that. And it was funny because, I think it really taught me just how incredible some of the gamers are. When you go to places like China, I've actually watched people play games in China where you can't see their fingers because they're just a blur, right? They're like they're going so fast, and it's just fun to watch, to see a human perform at that level. But Sacrifice, I got absolutely owned, and I thought that was really, really fun to play with.
Oh, that game demanded a lot from the player.
Yeah.
I mean, that was you had to do the RTS thing with the FPS thing.
Yes,
right?
Yes, and we had cool tech in it, and the tech was we were very proud of. It was the concept of real-time tessellation. So what was happening is there was this sort of fun thing that we had going on, which is we're making a game today, but we're never going to see it at full potential. So if you run it on better hardware, it's going to add more detail that we can't see today, and it does that in a neat way. So we'd actually define on the bodies where polygons would be taken away, and so flowers could disappear. What can disappear from the scene without destroying it? And an example would be on a human's face, for example, you'd say the nose has to stay, right? Because the minute the nose collapses, the face breaks, right? Or a shoulder disappears and collapses, that looks really bad. But there's lots of polygons can go. And so what would happen is we'd spin up tornadoes and things like that. And we learned something kind of interesting, which is there's only a finite amount of space on a computer screen. And so if I have 5 tornadoes going, you can't see what's behind them anyway, right? Because the whole screen's going crazy. And so you go, well, can we do 10 tornadoes? Well, you can, because you can't see what's going on behind them. And so that's an interesting... I think there's something interesting about that, which means you can sort of step up what you think you can do because of the sort of limitations of what we can actually see in a complex environment. A lot of engineers would say there's no point in doing that. You couldn't do 10 tornadoes. It would just look terrible. And it's like, well, no, actually you can, because of the limitations of the viewport that you're looking through. And so we just had some very cool engineers that were happy to try and experiment and invent as they went. And that's sort of a bit of an unlock to the design team when that happens.
And how do you keep engineers so creative when they have to sort of come in every day and take 2 hours of coffee just to get back into it and keep it going? How do you keep people like that going?
I actually define it as, have you ever been in a meeting and somebody keeps telling you why something can't be done? They're like, oh, yes. problem. I call them hurdle pointers. They just point at all the problems. And it gets really tiresome because they're not really suggesting any solutions. They're just telling you why you can't do things. And I've learned that those engineers, there's kind of 2 kinds of engineers I can't really work with. One is hurdle pointers, and the second is just tell me what to do. just give me a list of things to do and I'll do them. That's great, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for people who get the goal and are actually going to invent. When I talk to engineers, I say, wherever you are today, you could be working for some big corporation like Adobe or Facebook or something, but I'll bet you're washing the dishes, which means that you're coming to your cubicle every day and you're just doing whatever you're told to do and punching tickets like, here's a list of what you need me to do and I'll just do them. Versus actually being on the frontier of something and actually going, this hasn't been solved before. Like when we did MDK, we had this sniper rifle idea, and so the idea you could zoom in and shoot something accurately at distance, and it just creates a myriad of, well, how's that going to work? And I love that because now you're on that sort of edge of where's this going to go, what's this going to be, and we had a lot of fun with it because we'd let you zoom in on a guy who's wiggling his butt at you at distance and things like that. So,
that was exactly the image that came to my mind.
Yeah.
The pixelated butt waving, actually, when you said that.
And why wouldn't you, right? So it's fun, and that's ultimately what gamers are looking for. I think they're always looking to experience something new, something that sort of. It's a bit like watching movies. You sort of want to see new ideas and scenes and situations that you haven't seen before. I'm not looking for a rehash of all the old situations again. And so when a movie like The Matrix comes along, it's usually like, wait, what? You come away
Now,
from that's incredible, right?
That's something I definitely had to ask about, because The Matrix had a lot of scenes filmed in Oakland, our favorite bar in Oakland, right around the corner from when they pop out of the garage and they go through the tunnel. So do you have any anecdotes from that? That must have been a humongous project with lots of people and input and stakeholders. What did you come away from that, I don't know, learning or thinking of the whole experience?
Well, I mean, an interesting thing is in my career, I found that I had to do a blend of things I wanted to do and things that are licensed. And I found that if I do a game, like I've got this great new game called Jumpy Boy. Nobody cares. They're like, whatever, Jumpy what? But then you say, well, I'm doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that was one of my first games, and it went straight to number one. Suddenly, people want to work with you, and so forget Jumpy Boy. Let's find another Turtles. And I did the Terminator and Aladdin and things like that. But when The Matrix came along, to get to work with the directors was just unbelievable. They're super talented people, super smart, understanding culture, strangely accurate memories, so they can talk about. I watched the directors talking to each other about the color of a light, and and they were talking about color of light in a certain tunnel in a certain place and a certain situation, and they just have this incredible memory of whatever they've seen and absorbed over the years, all the comic books, all the animes, all the and so it was really fun to watch them in action. You can sort of see why they're able to really think outside the box and do cool stuff. But The Matrix was I think we bit off a little more than we can chew, if I was completely honest with you, because we did all these different SKUs and we didn't have engines for them. So we had to make engines and game for each platform. But when you have something as big and important as The Matrix, it's got to go on a lot of platforms. And so I think the funniest thing was that I actually didn't. I was so busy with Sacrifice that I didn't take the time to read the first movie script. So they sent me the first Matrix movie script, and I just was sitting there. And in the end, I'm like, I'm so sorry, we just don't have time to do this. And we passed on it. And then the Matrix movie came out, and I sat in the theater going, I wonder what that thing was like. And my wife was like, this is really good. And I'm like, I know, I missed out on this. And so I got a call saying, would you like to come up? This was with Joel Silver's office. Do you want to come up and talk about the next Matrix movie? And I tell you, I could have got a speeding ticket going up there. I was in such, of course, And so that's what got us into that second and third movie. And I think it's the second movie was peak Matrix. The hype was just unbelievable.
Absolutely. It's also peak Oakland in the series, so I definitely agree on that.
Yeah, that was so cool to see, like the freeway set and things like that. We got to go and see all of it, and involved in all of even shooting in Australia. We shared motion capture sets, but it was a true collaboration, and I think that was a pretty phenomenal thing, because that's where my sort of career had worked its way towards. Was, when I first did the Terminator, we were excited about it because we thought you were going to be the Terminator. I want to be the Terminator, and they're like, you can't be the Terminator, and we're like, well, I guess we'll be Sarah Connor then, and they're like, you can't be Sarah Connor, and then we're like, well, wait, who are we? You have to play as Kyle Reese, the guy that dies in the movie, and that's what licensing was like in those days. And they also said you can't use Arnold Schwarzenegger's face in the game. You can just have you get the one image that they use on the posters. That's all you get to work with. But don't put Arnold in the game. And so that's like, what? So welcome to movie licensing back in those days. But to see people like the Wachowskis, and Aladdin was the same as well, where the people with the power to say yes and no actually care. Like, they want the game to be authentic and real and give you access to everything you need. And I hope it stays that way forever now. I hope that's the future. so that it becomes a closer and closer collaboration with all those talented people and massive budgets working together. So the game experience is incredible.
So what are you working on now?
So these days I'm actually, I sort of decided after Sony bought my last company, because we were working on cloud gaming, which is thankfully still around. So I was concerned, we spent a lot of time, building cloud gaming up, and so the good news is it's still around. There's millions of people paying for PlayStation Now, which is the one that we ended up building, and so I decided I would do one more company. And that one company, I was like, shall I do it in the game space? Because I've built multiple companies. I've spent 30 plus years doing games. Or could I take my knowledge of how to work with engineers and everything else and move to do something different? And the thought was to try to see if we could create some massive entity for brands and potentially influencers too, to collaborate. So brands helping brands. And to put it really simply, imagine you have a store where you sell bicycles online, but you don't have helmets. Is there a brand out there that you'd like to collaborate with? Because on a data level, we can just join you together, so their helmets appear in your stores. Today, when stores buy anything, they buy pallets of them and put them in a warehouse somewhere and move them around and hope they pick the right sizes and the right colors. If you do it all digitally, you don't need any of that. So it massively improves the whole entire model of how e-commerce works. And so that's the core business. There's over 30,000 brands already using this technology. So I would say that's pretty exciting. But I did keep my toe in the game industry. I'm on the board of Intellivision. And Intellivision is just making something quite simple, which is, let's make a console literally just to let you play with your family on the sofa and your friends. It's not a console where you're playing, online Call of Duty with each other or something like that. It's literally just games with a one sentence instructions. Like big fish can eat small fish, don't get eaten, if you are skiing, there's hardly any instructions needed at all for skiing. It's just have fun, let's go. I'm the red one, you're the blue one, let's go. And so watching people play, that's the way games used to be. And when you watch kids today, they still get as excited as we did when we were kids. So I just want to be clear, that never went away. And yet it's not really being serviced. There's not devices being made where the button, it says press the red button so the button goes red. It has to be that simple so that you could hand one to mom or to dad or to a young kid, 7, 6, so that everyone can play together. And then the games automatically balance. So if they see somebody's not doing so good, it'll give them, they have a screen, and on the screen will appear a little tip like, say there's a bonus about to appear on the right corner of the screen. It'll say there's a bonus about to appear. So you can go over there and grab it. So that's really fun, and the device also has no violent games, so I think that's going to really appeal to the parents to have those in the house. So it's called the Amico from Intellivision, and it should be coming out this year. The team is just busting their butts to get it out, so it's a lot of work. Making a console isn't easy, and making a console during COVID is significantly harder. And all the games you have to make too. So you go, well, we're making a console, but you got to make the games too. There's got to be launch titles. And then you got to have a whole library of games coming. And so that's basically what they've pulled off. And so I'm kind of looking forward to it. What I think is going to happen is there's a lot of very talented developers working on big teams that are doing, $80 million games that with hundreds of people that, it's years of their life on this epic title, but they have a son and they'd love to just work on the weekend and make a game that they could play with their son. And the Amico is perfect for that. So it's literally designed for, making those sort of fun, simple games that you just, I think we're going to find some really talented people just doing it because they want to play it with their own family. So that's something we'll see what happens.
Have you toyed with the dev environment?
Yeah, I can't wait. I haven't yet, but I can't wait. That's exactly the kind of place I'd like to develop, right? Just make something really, really really addictive and simple, so that people and you can see that with the games on it. You know, some of the games people just get absolutely locked into and they play over and over and over. So and it's so fun to watch the kids doing that, because that just reminds us of our past. And so it's a bit like, you know, when we were talking earlier about how graphics seem to be advancing, but then a Minecraft comes along or something like that. I think we're still open. I mean, Tetris is still one of the best-selling games in history. We're still open to, if it's fun, if it's addictive, if I want to play it again and again and again, then that seems to be a pretty safe place to be developing.
Absolutely. Well, David Perry, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thanks so much.
And we're back. We're back. No, we're back. Alrighty. Thank you very much, David Perry, for coming in to chat and tell us a little bit about your life in the games and what it means to you. So, thank you very much, and we'll hopefully maybe have you on again, and maybe we'll see you working on another Matrix game in the future. We'll see. But to wrap it up for the day, what have y'all been playing?
Well, I guess I'll go.
Never heard of that game.
No, that's Downwell. It's
Tell us more
thing.
about Well.
Downwell is an actual game. I don't know about Well. I have been playing, against my better judgment, League of Legends.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Okay, hear me out. Let me back this up. I got the itch because there's no other game like it. Like, you can't escape that's how the game is. Like, I wanted to play a MOBA that had
Pokemon Unite is like it.
Yeah, but Pokemon is on console, and I really don't like console MOBAs.
No. You're about to start war here, huh?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But so
it's fine.
So
League of Legends.
I started playing, and I made a rule that I was only going to play with my friends, because the only time...
How many new friends have you made?
No friends. I have made no friends. I've actually lost friends. No, but League is only fun when you get to hang out with your friends and not care about the actual game and just hang out and, you know, play in the background, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been doing. And let me say, it is a very different experience from the last time I played it, 4 or 5 years ago. They've made a lot of changes. It's still the same game, but I have to relearn it. So...
it's okay.
I think the last time I played is about season 4, and since then I never touched the game anymore.
Yeah. I remember the last time I was playing, the season still had numbers. Now they just do year.
Oh, wait, they're doing years?
Yeah,
they're not having numbers?
Yeah, now it's 2021 season.
Oh, God.
So
time flies.
Yeah. I showed my age by asking what season it was.
It's fine. I played like 5 years ago for like 4 or 5 matches, maybe a little bit longer period of time ago. But even then, I was like, there's too much going on. The learning curve for me at that point, I thought, was going to be way too much for me to fully get into. Because all of the other friends that I had who were playing that were markedly higher level and had hundreds of hours of experience in the game. And starting out, I'm just like, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah.
But, man, I love the aesthetic of it. I love the aesthetic, but also it takes a bit for me to... I feel comfortable now. I'm able to watch, like, competitive League and watch people streaming and doing well on it. But if you're so, like, new to MOBAs entirely, like I was, it just threw me for a loop. Like the intro and like showing you how to play is so rudimentary, and there's like no other real like tricks or like how you're supposed to play it or the meta of it. But it's a beautiful game. Hats off to them. That'll be an interesting one to see later this year if we see any more large esport tournaments with it. I think that'll be a cool one to check out. But I don't know. League of Legends, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, Miles. You know what you've done to your life.
Yeah.
But it's okay. But League of Legends is a good game. Also, Pokemon Unite it's a baby MOBA. Well, not for babies, but it is a good entry point where there's not a ton of stuff to focus on, and it's easily graspable. You can pick it up. Let me say that. But anything else anybody else has been playing? Alrighty then. Well, I think it's about time that we wrapped up this episode for the day. We want to thank you for listening to the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment's official podcast. If you have any thoughts, questions, corrections, or general museum ideas, please shoot us an email at info@themade.org.
I'll do it. We would like to send out a big thank you to everyone who donated recently, and to our patient supporters who keep the Made afloat. Donors get to listen to this podcast 1 week before it's released on major streaming services, and we continue that with future episodes every week. Till then, I'm Chun.
I'm Miles.
I'm Anthony.
I'm Red. Thanks, and we will see you next week. Later, gamers. Sorry, that was a peak. Yeah, that was a peak.
Later, gamers.